This week, St Pat's fans were over the moon when they saw plans for their brand new stadium. The Richmond Arena, which will be built on this site, is one of the most ambitious plans we've ever seen from a League of Ireland football club. It will hold 12,000 people and will be built on top of a shopping centre. The response to the news has been overwhelmingly positive, with fans, pundits and local politicians excited by the development. Tom O'Mahony is the president of St Patrick's Athletic. Tom, maybe start by telling us a bit about your own role in St Patrick's Athletic.
Yeah, well, I'm the president of the club. I'm a lifetime fan of the club. I worked in government, and when I retired, Garrett Kelleher asked me to come on board the club, which I was delighted to do. It was a great honour for me as a Pats fan. And then more recently, he's asked me to take on the role of president and to oversee this project for our new stadium and the new Inchicore Town Centre. So I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to be able to do that.
You unveiled your plans this week, obviously a culmination of a lot of hard work. How did you feel when you finally put the pictures and this visualisation of the Inchicore Town Centre and what will become the Richmond Arena? How did you feel when you finally got to get that out to the wider public?
Very, very pleased at what we put out, and quite ecstatic about the reaction. I think the reaction has been so positive. One or two negative notes at most, practically, and all the papers have covered it in detail, the radio stations, television stations, and the people can see the benefits of what we're proposing. They can see what it would do, not just for the club, which is obviously important, but much more importantly, the huge benefit it would have for the whole Inchicore area, which is crying out for regeneration, and for the people living here and the people moving into here to have proper opportunities for, places they can shop in their own area, leisure facilities, civic facilities in their own area, providing all of that and providing a unique stadium that the like of which doesn't exist in Ireland or the UK. It does exist, obviously, there's a few models in Europe, but this would be something absolutely superb that Inchicore and even Dublin could be very, very, very proud of.
I know you mentioned one or two negatives. We might get to them in a moment, but I suppose first to extol the positives for a moment. This is the kind of thing, it's not just a stadium by the looks of things, it's very much a community hub. It will be what a lot of, I suppose, local GAA clubs are. They are the centre of their community. This is a bit more than grass and post. Explain to us exactly what will be on the site, what you envisage it will bring to the people of Inchicore.
Okay, well, the first thing is you're absolutely right. St Pat's are and always will be an Inchicore club. And when Garrett Kelleher got involved in the club, quite a number of people were proposing to him that we wouldn't really be able to develop here. We should up sticks to a new arena somewhere else. And Garrett quickly came to the conclusion that you'd probably kill St Pat's if you did that. We are part of the beating heart of the community here in Inchicore, and we always will be. Now, what we have across the road, and it is literally, if we walk out of this ground and cross the road, we're on the new site. It is that close. Dublin City Council want to develop that site so that there will be housing units to help deal with the housing crisis that we have, and that there will be retail and civic facilities for the local community, which they are starved of. What we have put into our plan would be whatever level of housing they want. Dublin City Council decides the number of units and the mix of units, and that would be delivered. We then have, to the front, on the Emmett Road side of it, we would have a shopping mall, which on the ground floor would have major supermarket chain, pharmacy, cinema, all this type of thing. It would also have whatever community facilities Dublin City Council and the local community decide are the most important. And the indications we're getting would include things like a library, indoor sports hall, maybe a small music theatre or something like that. Below that, at basement level, would be a large car parking for 350 cars, buses also for match nights and so on. That means that people using the retail can just drive into the car park, people coming to matches have the car park as well. And then perched on top of that, first floor level, is this 12,000-seater UEFA Category 3 stadium, which would be St Patrick's Athletic new ground.
So the ground at the moment is owned by Dublin City Council. You're at the moment trying to show your proposal of what you could do with that land. To what extent have you engaged with the council on this project?
We went and met people in the council informally just to understand what they wanted and to make sure that what we were proposing could be a runner. We've also spoken at this stage to quite a number of local councillors, and we have got really, really positive responses. One group of councillors actually issued a statement last night indicating their support for it, which was great. The City Council owns the site, but they want to do a partnership with a developer. So we are saying we can be that developer. Now, the nature of that deal would then have to be worked out. It would probably be something along the lines that the City Council would give us the site, we would do the thing and give them back all the civic facilities, and then whatever value needed to change hands, and that would all be part of the negotiating process.
So who would actually own the Richmond Arena should it be constructed?
It would be Garrett Kelleher and his company.
Gareth Kelleher would own it.
Yeah.
Who funds this to build it? Will it be Mr. Kelleher will be the one funding this?
For something like this, you put together a funding package of international investors, and that's the business that Garrett is in. That's what he does. And the beauty about this is that everything is already in place. Garrett knows exactly who would be the design and architectural team. He knows and has named the company who would be responsible for the actual development itself, the project management and so on. And he has his international investors lined up who will come in on this if we get the go ahead, because it is the retail part of it actually makes it a very, very attractive package for investors. They know that they're going to get the return on their investment. But the retail part of it then in turn funds the stadium. That enables the stadium to happen.
So the answer to who funds it is Gareth and investors to be determined.
Yeah.
How much will it cost?
That I can't say that for two reasons. First of all, we have no idea what housing specification Dublin City Council will set out, and obviously that has a huge implication for that helps to determine the cost of the thing.
Is there an over? Is there an under? Is there some?
No, we've no idea. But the second thing is, we may never tell people what this is going to cost, and part of the reason for that is we're not looking for any government grants for it. This is unlike practically any other stadium development that there has ever been in the country. This will be privately financed, so costs and everything like that become a matter between Garrett and the financial companies and so on that are going to invest in it. So there would be issues around commercial sensitivity and all of that. So if it may well be the case that we won't put a price on it.
Can you understand maybe the concerns of fans if they don't know who's properly behind the project and they don't know how much the project will cost?
But they do know who's behind the project. It's
Garrett and unnamed investors. It probably doesn't give an idea of who's really behind it.
But who, for any investment that takes place anywhere, do people need to know the names of the banks that are investing money in it? Do people need to know the names of the investors? Absolutely not.
There's probably social capital in something like a football club in a different way.
Well, we're talking about an international commercial transaction here. I would say the names of the investors would mean nothing to football fans. I think what I would say to people here is look at what Garrett Kelleher has done in the 12 years that he has come into St. Pat's. Through thick and thin, he has supported the club. He has made sure that the club survived the hard times that we had. He's put his money where his mouth is, and he is going to continue to do that.
Would you say the League of Ireland in general has had positive experiences with unnamed investors and single investors pumping money into clubs in general?
I'm never going to speak for any other clubs. I can only speak for St. Patrick's Athletic, and our experience with our investor, who of course is not unnamed because we've named him about 10 times in this interview, is extremely positive.
Maybe just the general perception though is that it's probably right to have some degree of caution to a project like this, given that the League of Ireland has some history of these projects never coming to fruition and angel investors that appear and don't really fulfill the promises. You would probably imagine a certain degree of people being a little bit nervous from that sense.
Well, we're talking about somebody who has invested in this club 12 years ago and has continued to invest in the club when quite clearly he's not making, a massive return out of it, quite the reverse.
Is this the opportunity to make a return? Is that part of his motivation?
His motivation, as far as I can see, and I mean, I'm putting my reputation on the line here. I wouldn't be involved in this project if I didn't have complete trust and confidence in Garrett. Garrett's motivation here is because he has been involved in this club for 12 years. He sees the opportunities for this club and for Inchicore in the development that he proposes. And this is what he does. He is a developer. And he sees the opportunity to bring his skills and his experience to the benefit of the club and the area, and he's going to do that.
And it will benefit him then hopefully in the long run in terms of the financial clout of a retail and shopping unit.
He owns the company, so in the long run, if this makes the company hugely profitable and so on, then Garrett obviously is going to benefit from that. And I would say the very best to look to him if that is the case, because he has sunk one hell of a lot of money into the club over the last 12 years.
Yeah, that's something you brought up there. I think the Sunday Business Post had an article a couple of weeks ago. They suggested the debts could be in the region of 5 million, and most of them would be owed to Garrett. Do you feel that the debt issue is probably something that will hold you back in any way?
No, I don't believe so, because the financial package that Garrett will put together is going to happen because of the retail, because the investors can see that they will get their return on the retail.
And the stadium itself, what happens to where we're standing now? What happens to Richmond Park?
Well, when we move across, if everything goes to plan, then clearly we don't need here, because we wouldn't be playing our matches here anymore. This is a excellent site for development as well. It's right there on the banks of the river. Inchicore is going to thrive in the future, especially when this development happens. I would imagine that what will happen will be that this site will also be developed, and you will have more people coming in to live in Inchicore. They will live here, they will bring disposable income into the area, which will support the retail facilities, the civic facilities, and hopefully will put a lot more bums on seats in our stadium. Because a point that people have raised, and I think it's a criticism I'd like to take head on, because a few people have said it over the last couple of days. You know, the club doesn't get gates of 12,000 or anywhere near it, so why are we talking about building a 12,000 seater stadium? And there's a few elements to that. Our average gates are below 2,000, that's true. The highest gate we've had this season was nearly 3,000 for the match against Cork at the start of the season. But you don't build a stadium to cater for your average crowd. You build a stadium to cater for the size of crowd that you may need from time to time. Croke Park holds 83,000. It probably gets that number 2 or 3 times a year, but nobody would seriously suggest that Croke Park was made too big. When we play...
It wouldn't be often that Croke Park, though, would sell 10% of its tickets. If you're talking that your last attendance there, I think, was just over 1,200, and your attendance is the maximum of this new stadium will be 12,000, that's a pretty big disparity. I know you've made the point that Croke Park doesn't sell out every week, but it also doesn't sell 10% of its seats every week to open.
Yeah, that is true. But the two things that we need to cater for in this are, number one, the maximum demand that we're likely to need. I mean, Pats is a European club. We haven't been in Europe for the last 2 seasons, but we were in Europe for about 8 seasons in a row before that. Generally in Europe, we've been extremely successful. We've usually got through 2 or 3 rounds.
What is that maximum demand? What do you mean?
This is what I'm going to say to you. Generally, when we're in Europe, we get through 2 or 3 rounds, and we end up having to go out to Tala. We end up having to go out to Tala, which is not attractive for the club. Tala is a way inferior stadium to what we would have here, and our fans aren't particularly comfortable in Tala. Our fans want to support St. Pat's with the atmosphere that you have here in Richmond Park. When we are in those stages of European competition in a brand new superb stadium, I believe that we would fill the stadium. But also, our average now may be less than 2,000, but there are a lot of people who will not come to matches here and won't bring their families to matches here because the facilities are antiquated, and we admit that they're antiquated and there's very little we can do about it. Other sports have shown that if you can make a quantum leap in the standard of the facilities, people start treating it as a family evening out and so on, and you grow the gates. I believe that when we have this stadium, we'll double or more our average crowds, and then we will have our own European matches, things like maybe underage internationals, other sporting events. There will be many occasions where we will be able to use the 12,000 seater capacity. And to be honest with you, if we cut that capacity by a few thousand...
Not for St. Pat's.
It might be. But if we cut that capacity by a few thousand, I don't believe we're going to save very much money, because remember, the size of this stadium is determined by the shopping centre that's underneath it. And what we're essentially just doing is putting an extra floor on top of it. So by going from 8,000 seats to 12,000 seats, it's not costing us very much more than the plastic in the 4,000 seats. Now, okay, that's a bit of a simplification, but it's not. It's, you know, if cutting the number of seats by a third, say, is not going to knock a third off the cost of it. So if we can finance this, as I am saying we can, it really doesn't matter that the capacity is 12,000.
What's the next step on this process? Where do you go to next? And why are the FAI kind of conspicuous in their absence from any mention of this? Are they involved in any way with this project? Have they offered any support to St. Pat's?
Well, we haven't asked for any support because at this point, this doesn't particularly involve the FAI. Unlike other projects, we're not looking for funding from the FAI. I think the FAI will be very enthusiastic about anything that upgrades the standard of facilities available in League of Ireland. In fairness to them, we only went public with this yesterday. I don't know actually if anybody has asked the FAI for a comment. I'm sure if they did, it would be very, very positive because our relationships with the FAI are very good, and they obviously want to work for the improvement of the league. In terms of our next step on this, it's not really our next step now. It's Dublin City Council. We've put out there what we want to do. The City Council and the City Councillors now have to decide what's the process by which they will, are they going to have a tender process? How are they going to formally invite people to submit expressions of interest? And when they do that, we will be in with this.
You mentioned the overwhelming positivity to this, and looking in the media, speaking to fans and looking online, social media networks, it has been overwhelmingly positive. You did mention some negative aspects. You did take exception, as you told me before we started the interview, to a tweet from Off the Ball. The tweet itself actually said it made reference to the attendance at the last league home match, and then made reference to the fact that you'd launched a proposal to build a 12,000 seater stadium. How do you see the statement of fact there as the attendance and the seater proposal as negative?
Well, you could have said St. Pat's have only had an attendance of 2,800 so far as their biggest match of the season. Why are they building a 12,000 seater stadium? Don't think anybody gets a good attendance against Bray, to be quite honest with you, because Bray don't have a large travelling support. As I've explained to you in great detail, this is a visionary proposal which will grow attendances for St. Patrick's Athletic and will enable St. Patrick's Athletic to host up to 12,000 people in our own ground rather than having to go out to Tala. I'm really, really pleased that I would say 99.9% of the reaction that I have seen to this has been so positive. Look, I'm not going to lose any sleep over the occasional thing, which might just have been a good-natured little dig at us anyway. I don't mind that.
Final word, you mentioned that you believe you can grow the attendances by improving the infrastructure. Is there any evidence to suggest that? I mean, you looked at Limerick played in Thomond Park for a few years. There was no real bump in their attendances. Is there any evidence you've found to suggest that moving to a nicer place would increase the attendances?
Yes, we've done surveys from time to time with our fans because we have a working group here in the club involving supporters and ourselves, looking at ways in which we can improve the experience, in which we can improve the club. And we have done fan surveys. And one thing that has come across to us time and time again is that there are many people who would come to St. Pat's matches and would bring other people to St. Pat's matches, but the facilities are just not good enough. Now, we're not alone in that. We're not, that would be true probably of most stadia, or probably half the stadia in the league at the moment. But certainly the standard of facility, I mean, we played the best, I think we're acknowledged as being one of the teams that plays the best and most attractive football in the league. So the product that we're offering is good, but the environment in which we offer the product is not good enough. So we're saying we can fix that, and if we fix that, then we will certainly get a huge increase in our gates.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.